went limp like some loppy toppy, but a body stopped me and I'm tired of talking. You want an accent? Here's a mouthful of cockney. Said you want a ring and you think that I'll drop me just for some pussy that'll bust out a box spring. All of the times that you tried to off me, the tables have turned and now the music is offbeat. You wanted me back so you keep kissing me softly. I'd rather jack off in a sock with some hot tea. I'm over and out, but like a walkie-talkie. I'm leaving now, bitch. Try to stop me.
For having me today. I'll be filling in for Caroline today, obviously. So I'll have a brief remarks here and then we'll get to your questions. As you know, over the weekend the president announced this project Freedom, and the goal of it is to, frankly, if you want to talk about it, it's to rescue like almost 23,000 civilians from 87 different countries that are trapped inside of the Gulf and left for dead.
Wow.
In the Persian Gulf by this Iranian regime. You know, for more than 2 months now, these innocent sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive, this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. Nations from around the world, the overwhelming majority of whom are not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade.
Yep.
These ships, you know, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food. You start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. So what it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have seen, you know, been open fire on. It's rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships.
Yeah, I've seen videos of this.
So frankly, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries that, and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this, and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just because of, just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks, they're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable. And at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors.
Holy
so
shit!
Already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade.
Good.
And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there. And this is the first step towards reopening the strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. We have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under this president, under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else.
What's analysis from which class? From those classes, the analysis on
this is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay, we're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us, or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on the ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be. They pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones. But it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here.
Thus far,
just about the importance of the Straits for a moment.
They have no reason to have any ill feeling of him.
Along with significant volume
kind of like the guy based off of what they've seen and heard so far.
The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't know many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean I know who some of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway.
That's good,
It's an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law. International law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water, and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage. So far, as a proof of concept and as a proof of function, 2 U.S. flag merchant ships have successfully transferred the Strait of Hormuz in the first stages of this project, and they're now safely on their way.
Right.
The U.S. military is deploying the necessary assets to extend this defensive umbrella over commercial shipping. But there should be no mistake. And as I said this already, this is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots.
Yeah.
But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency. The assets supporting this project, by the way, include guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, multi-domain unmanned platforms, and 15,000 of the finest military service members on the planet. These forces have already destroyed, as I told you earlier, I thought it was 6, it's 7 Iranian fast boats that failed to heed our warnings. And by fast boats, we're talking about, some of these things look like Boston whalers. Okay, so these are not like Navy ships. But nonetheless, they come fast at these boats, try to swarm them, try to harm them. We're not going to let that happen. So 7 of them now sit at the bottom of the sea, along with, by the way, the rest of Iran's Navy. That's where you can find their Navy today. And we're going to continue to systematically clear this passageway through the straits to restore freedom of navigation. Now, while this project steadily progresses, Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian
I never even heard of that.
and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall. U.S. sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with the naval blockade
70%.
to degrade Iran's capacity to generate, to move, and repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines.
Yeah.
The blockade alone is costing Iran as much as $500 million a day in lost revenue. 90% of total Iranian trade has been halted, causing permanent damage to Iran's oil infrastructure as well as are forced to shut in. Again, all of this is in response to their piracy.
Jesus.
It cannot be that you have these straits and they blow up any ship that moves and the only ships they get to go through are theirs. You can't have a situation in which the straits are closed to everyone else, but they benefit from the piracy. That can't happen. That's why the blockade is in place, and that's why these sanctions are crippling them. Any foreign financial, by the way, Treasury is now identifying and cutting off every dollar of revenue that's flowing to this regime. So, look, any foreign financial institution or commercial actor that enables Iran's sanctions evasion is going to face secondary sanctions exposure and a loss of access to the U.S. financial system. As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened. Back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. So, look, the time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system. And apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least, they're insane in the brain. And so we need to address that, and it's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. So Iran must accept the reality of the situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them but ultimately good for the world. The diplomatic path, if there's a real diplomatic path, I'm not always going to be one, but if there's a real diplomatic path and we continue to explore it, Steve and Jared are working on that very hard. If there is one there, it could be one that leads them to reconstruction, to prosperity, and to stability, and to not posing a threat to the world. The alternative is growing isolation, economic collapse, and ultimately total defeat. I know what the right choice is for Iran. I hope that the people that are making decisions will make the right one. The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says. And if they test him, ultimately they will lose. The hard way, the easy way, the long way, the short way, they will lose. And with that, it's time for your questions. So, that's one of my services.
Independent journalist. Secretary Rubio, have you seen any recent indications that Iran is willing to give up its nuclear weapons program that is credible, verifiable, and
they're not going to do that.
Immediate de-escalation?
They need it.
This is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that. They just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe. They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity.
Why would you do that?
There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains, and in caves, and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed to the world, and we know for a fact that they retain highly enriched uranium at 60%, that they did so, and that has no civilian use, none, zero whatsoever.
Thank you.
So they have an opportunity here to agree to something that will make it clear that they are not interested in one thing is to say we don't want a nuclear weapon. Another thing is to do the things that prove you don't want a nuclear weapon. By the way, if what Iran wants is a civilian nuclear program for power plants and stuff like that, there are a lot of countries in the world that have that, and they don't enrich. They import the enriched material. You know, they could have that if that's what they wanted, but they're not acting like that's what they wanted. They're acting like they want a military, nuclear program. That's unacceptable. So that's the process we're engaged in now. To create, that's the object of this diplomacy, is to come up with some level of understanding about what are the topics that they've agreed to negotiate on. We don't have to have the actual agreement written out, and one day this is highly complex and highly technical, but we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear about the topics that they are willing to negotiate on and the extent and the concessions they're willing to make at the front end in order to make those talks worthwhile. That's what Steve and Jared and the whole team is working on, and I hope to have good news on it. That's the outcome we would prefer. That's the outcome we would have preferred a year ago.
Yeah.
That's the outcome I think most of us would have preferred a long time ago. But that's not the option they've given us, given their activity. All right, there's no way I can figure out who to call on. I'm just going to press right in the middle, right there, you right there. Yeah. In the back row.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll go to you next. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio.
You're going right.
Welcome to the White House.
What's that?
Talking to me, sir?
Yeah, to you, yes, sir.
Thank you. I have two questions on two separate issues that come
Did they
under...
get two questions for these?
Two questions.
There's a lot of people in here.
That fall under your umbrella.
All right, well, you can ask me two questions. I'll give you one answer.
Thank you very much.
And I'll pick the one I like better.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The first has to do with the
locked
blockade.
in.
There are lawmakers from both parties who claim the blockade is an act of war. What do you say to that? And my second question has to do with the fuel embargo of Cuba. How long, Mr. Secretary, will that last?
Okay, two things. All right, good. I'll answer both your questions because I like the second one too. The first one on the blockade. And so why do we have a blockade? We have a blockade because they are shut down the straits.
Yeah.
So I don't know which members of Congress you're talking to, but here's what I would ask them. I would ask everybody here. It's very simple. These guys have shut down the straits of Hormuz. This is what Iran is saying. We will shut down the straits. No one can go through. No country in the world can go through unless we allow you to go through, and you have to pay us. But our ships can go through, meaning the Iranian ships, as much as they want. That's crazy. Who would agree to that? So how are we going to have a situation where they get to close the straits to everybody, and the only people who are allowed to go through there 100% without paying anything are the Iranians?
Them. Yeah.
If you do that, they'll keep the straits closed forever. They're trying to make this some new normal. Okay, under no circumstances can we ever allow them to normalize the fact that they get to blow up commercial ships and put mines in the water.
Duh.
So the response to that is we're going to blockade your ships. If everyone's ships are not getting out, your ships are not getting out either. That's not an act of war. That's a defensive measure. It's a counter to what they have decided to do. You know what is an act of war? Putting mines in the water. Why don't the members of Congress, whoever it is complaining about it, they should be all over that. These guys put mines in the water. That alone, mining in the water is illegal, period, under any circumstances, and they've done it. But this is crazy stuff.
Remember that whenever you see people crying about international law.
Oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided we're not giving you free oil anymore.
That's convenient.
And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And that's what, so incompetent communists run that country.
What's the difference?
They really don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo, and we'll be addressing it, but not today. Okay. All right, let's go to the front, right there.
Secretary Rubio. You are going to the Vatican to meet with the Pope. Is this an attempt to smooth things over with the Pope, given the rhetoric between President Trump and Moscow?
It's a trip we had planned from before, and obviously we had some stuff that happened. And no, look, there's a lot to talk about with the Vatican. I'll give you one example. The Pope just returned from a trip to Africa, where the church is growing very vibrantly.
It is.
And we have shared concerns about religious freedom, religious freedom in different parts of the world. We'd love to talk to them about that. The topic of Cuba, we gave Cuba $6 million of humanitarian aid, but obviously they won't let us distribute it. We distribute it through the church. We'd like to do more. We're willing to give more humanitarian aid to Cuba, by the way, distributed through the church, but the Cuban regime has to allow us to do it. They won't allow us to give their own people more humanitarian aid.
They don't want to lose the
through the church. So there's a lot to talk about.
The president recently said that the Pope is endangering a lot of Catholics as a result of his rhetoric around the Iran war. Is that the sentiment
I
you
don't think
agree?
that's an accurate description of what he said. I think what the president basically said is that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because they would use it against places that have a lot of Catholics and Christians and others, for that matter. It goes back to the central point. I think the president, without trying to speak for him, but I think I can characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. Puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Man, do something about it.
That's so good.
And he's been willing to address that threat. And that's what he promised he would do when he got elected, by the way, is address threats like this.
I
wish I knew your name.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Can you put name tags on?
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Who are you with?
I'm with Modown Media Network.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, the President has said multiple times that weapons were provided to the Kurdish groups to pass on the Iranian people. However, Kurdish political parties and the American government says they have not received such weapons. Even some claim these weapons remain in the U.S. base in the region.
Arming Iranian insurgencies?
What weapons were given to, and whether you intend to retrieve them or still want to pass to the Iranian people?
Yeah, look, ultimately, what the president is expressing, and I think has repeatedly, is he wished the Iranian people had, look, he's heartbroken by these images. You think about it, you're an Iranian, okay? You're unhappy that your economy doesn't work for you. You don't have freedom. You don't have an opportunity to express yourself. You've got friends that have been shot in the head because they're out protesting. And it's heartbreaking to see that these people are abused in this way and have no measures to take against their own government as a result of it. By the way, this goes back, you guys remember the protests in 2009 where they slaughtered people in the street.
Oh, the last time.
This is a vicious regime, guys. Okay? These are people that hang people from cranes in the town square so everyone can see. They continue these executions of people.
That's right.
And have continue to do so for over a decade and a half.
They're the bad guys.
So I think what the president is expressing is the desire that he wishes the Iranian people had an ability to fight back against some of these things that are happening to them. And I would view that as distinct and separate from the specifics of this operation that was ongoing before it concluded, and certainly different from the operation that's going on now. Right there in the...
Regarding Colombia, regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary, we
I'm behind you, not Colombia, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Not
Secretary, thank you
Colombia.
so much. On Lebanon, are
Yes.
we in a ceasefire or less fire? And the second question, do you think you would be able to achieve an agreement between Lebanon and Israel without risking a civil war in Lebanon? What are you doing to risk? What are you doing to?
No, I got it. I got the gist of your question. So look, here's the challenge with Lebanon, okay? There's no problem between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government. Israel doesn't claim any land in Lebanon belongs to them. And by and large, I think a peace deal between Lebanon and Israel is imminently achievable and should be.
Well, yeah, obviously.
The problem
Why
with
would it
Israel and
not be?
Lebanon is not Israel or Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah operates from inside of Lebanese territory. They terrorize and attack Israelis, but they also are inflicting tremendous damage on the Lebanese people. The reason why Lebanon gets
That's what I
attacked
said.
by Israel
Remember that?
is because of Hezbollah.
See?
Because Hezbollah is hiding in some house,
Yep.
launching rockets against Israelis, and then they get hit.
It's exactly
So what you're
what I
seeing
said.
now is Israeli responses to either attacks or perceived threats. And this is not new. This has been going on for a very long time. What
This is
our hope?
obvious.
Our hope is to
It's
engage
obvious.
the Lebanese and Israeli governments under our mediation at the table to achieve this.
Get rid of Hezbollah.
And that is having Lebanese armed forces and a Lebanese government, not just with the willingness, but with the capability
Yeah.
to begin to challenge Hezbollah and disarm
Exactly.
them. Because the Lebanese people are also victims of Hezbollah.
Oh, thank
And
God.
by the way, on the
Yes.
topic of Hezbollah in Lebanon, who is behind Hezbollah? Why do they exist? They're an
Iran.
agent of Iran.
That's
if you go
right.
through that Middle East and you identify every problem, Hamas, Hezbollah, to some
Man.
extent the Houthis, obviously, and others, and behind every one of these groups is Tehran. So apart from the nuclear weapons, apart from all these other things, these guys are behind all the bad actors. Hezbollah is a wing. It's an extension of Iranian desire to destabilize
So
the
is
region.
Hamas.
So we're very committed to this process. It's not going to be easy. You're asking me a complex question. You know this has been going on for a very long time. It's not going to be easy. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that both sides continue to talk so that progress can be made on some sort of permanent ceasefire that isn't constantly spoiled by Hezbollah and by Hezbollah violence. Right? I'm winging it, guys. Okay, right there. Yes.
You mentioned the two U.S. ships that safely crossed the Strait of Hormuz. Are other ships being told it's safer to get back to regular levels, or are we still going to see limits in place?
Well, look,
Probably going to be limits,
for
right?
obvious reasons, I'm not going to broadcast who we're talking to or who we're telling them to move. I mean, we want these operations to be safe, and I think as it unfolds and ships get through, we'll make those.
Whoa. Yeah, interesting discussion in class. Whoa, we have heard that so many times, almost like verbatim. We're going to repeat this discussion going on in class, really interesting. So someone highlighting some discussions back around COVID time, when everyone was ramping up the Trump stuff, Pizzagate, all this stuff was going on, the psychic networks were getting torn down, Catholic religious sectors connected to some of the criminal networks, to connected to some of the abortion clinics, to some of the farms, to some of the... Right. Exactly. Hold on. So they're highlighting some discussions, like if people were listening to stuff like this in the political world, or not that too many of them listen too much, but if they see a clip or something and they would see like a person wearing a thing on their head, could be a yarmulke, could be a turban, or is it speaking Hispanic? Right, so then those same MAGA ones ramping up the, right, doing it on purpose almost, the same freaking networks that are profiting from the transgender lawsuits, after they amp it up. I'm not talking about young poor kids that don't understand because they're getting brainwashed and manipulated by psychos like turtle washers connected to the goons that amp up that other stuff. You start to see how it's all connected and you're like, holy shit, yeah, just awareness and discussion of those things helps. And then when they stop that as though it's conspiracy and don't let them put stuff in your head, blasphemy, you gotta be fucking kidding me. It's a joke. Yes, I agree. Right, so they're highlighting some of those kind of same goons connected to some of the other lawsuits and fear peddling propaganda, racism. Yet they'll doing the racist stuff, calling people packies. You're talking to terrorists, angry vegan. They hit upon certain demographics. You know, it's not that hard to see, but it is if you're not aware of it. That's why we try to educate people to it, but they act like it's all conspiracy. And that it's not things we should talk about. Don't you bother their minds with your malarkey. Okay. 2 times 2 is 4. Washington Road ashore. Hardy har har. Who's on the Washington Monument? You mean Mount Rushmore? No, you meant the Washington Monument. Who is on the Washington Monument? I have no idea who's there. Do you get a live shot? I'll tell you. Like right now, who's on it, or? Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Right. So they're highlighting how some of them were purposely, yes, saying those things and amping up if they would see a Latino or might be a colored person. Put a colored person in that position. Put someone with a turban. A woman. Oh, a woman. That'll piss them off. Okay, let's do it the other way. That's getting old and played out. Let's put them in. Okay. Now let's just get them fighting together in the same locker rooms. Yeah, that'll be fine. I mean, it's gotten so stupid, like watching this shit in slow motion while people fucking play their dumb games. Psychedelic trip parties. Watch groups of fake and real child and animal pornography targeting innocent citizens. Wow. I know some of them are really bad people, right? I know. Some of them really were watching it or really kicked a dog. I know. They want the producers, right? You don't say. I sure hope so. I really hope folks address what's going on here soon for the sake of humanity. It's amazing watching from the nosebleeds, from the great beyond, with angel wings and devil horns. I got big hoofs, twinkle toes, stardust. You want some death darts? I got some death darts. You want some of those? Oh, it's just like Cupid's love arrow, only it's a little different. Oh, it depends. I guess it's all at your own will. It's all at your own will. Hopefully you have a good soul. We'll see what happens. Ooh, a spirit cooker. What's that? When you see how fucking stupid and immature these people are and you go back into that time frame and you see what we're talking about, you actually can connect some of these groups. The Psychic Network there, some of the Jamaicans and the Catalytic Converter groups from Jamaica all the way up to Canada, down south, Africa. It's not that hard. I mean, maybe it's just easier for us because we grew up like it was on the back of our left hand. Just wait till you see my right palm, motherfucker! Oh, you've already seen it? No wonder you're speaking the truth. Yeah, when you see that right palm, man, It's nothing personal, right? Yeah, it's not, you're not doing me any favors. You actually hate me. You're just like, I know. And then when you try to do the right thing, they think you're siding with me, and they're like, how could you? With that witch, Nazi, cartel, non-vaxxer, dangerous, schizo, but whatever it is that'll pull at your heartstrings. Did I spray paint something? Fucking stupid cunts. Right, so that's pretty much what we've been dealing with our whole lives. Yeah, and our children are in the hands of sick, murderous pedophiles, and we really appreciate it if the folks around here would wake the fuck up and acknowledge the facts and concerns and help to educate the folks as to how these networks get away with and profit and strong-arm you and love you and give you lots of business and something to talk about. Anyways, there's some really cool words we're going to talk about. So we're doing the riddle. What was it again? Nice and nishin. Nice. You got anything yet? You got anything yet? I got it. Recognize and recognition. Let's look at the origin of those words and see if... And it's supposed to be connected to what? Deja vu? Telemundo? And creedable. Right, there you go. Good job.